admire the sharpness. Because of your question, Professor Fong, I admire you in 2005. I still admire the sharpness because it made me think. You're right. The inflection point, when I answered the first time in this panel was military coup, but there was another inflection point before that. When during the election there was no strong political party in the system that can represent the conservatives or the establishment. Military, they can probably defend countries, but they cannot govern. They don't know how to run campaign management. They didn't come to the Kennedy School like I did. So they didn't know how to do a communication. They didn't know how to do campaigning, and there was no representation of political party that could speak to the conservatives and the elites. And every time when there's a competitive election, they always lose. And that's when, within that system, it becomes an inflection point as an excuse for, below the belt kind of punch, which is the military coup. In Thailand, 13 times. Since we became democratic in 1932, so there was 13 military coups. Every 7 to 8 years, the military establishment, the elites would, find an excuse, whether it's corruption or violence in Thailand, and throw a military coup. But the inflection before that, as he was trying to point out, is that because in the parliamentary system, there was no competitive party that represent conservative values or to defend on their interests. So yeah, I think that's the true inflection point, which I take back from the very first time. The second observation from his question is that because of that, and going back to my framework, let's say it's a diamond of dismantle constitution, institution, political opponents, and voters. So because they understood that they cannot compete free and fair in a proper election, that's why they started to dismantle institutions such as election commission. They will dismantle voters by using voter suppression techniques and voter fatigue by design, driving voter turnout down as much as possible. If the voting turnout is really high, it's very hard for them to manipulate election results. Here comes everybody, that kind of feeling. But if the voting turnout is like 50%, such as in the case of Britain, in case of Japan, in case of Thailand in January, it's pretty easy for you to organize your own group to come out to vote. Even in America, when I was here in November after the election result, I was trying to see the voting outcome. I couldn't find the number. I found it yesterday. 5 million people didn't go to vote compared to Biden's time because maybe they felt that the cost of going to election exceeds the benefit of going. And that's by design, such as amending the electoral rules, make sure that the ballot is really far, organize it on a Saturday so that laborers couldn't go. So all these other things that, Democrats, if we want to fight back, and if the Ash Center want to realize its mission on innovation and governance and the new playbook that we need to do, we need to really understand that these autocrats are really smart and they're very innovative and they're very thinking inside. We should be talking gangster politics now, not Harvard politics. And once we know that, then we start to get the students to get involved and innovate and take care of this problem, because they will dismantle voter and they will win elections because of gerrymandering, because of all these things that they will do. So that's the third inflection point now, that even Democrats have ways and campaigns and communications and things like that, but there's a chance that you will lose in the election. Such as the one that happened in the States last year, for example. Like Trump was very good in organizing early voting turnout in swing states, and you could see the number was much better than Harris, and even comparable to Biden's time. And that's something that keeps me awake at night.
I guess the one caution I would add to the question is to say that it's not as if people voted for authoritarians. I mean, that's not
for the price of eggs.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why people vote an incumbent out of office. And in fact, I think it's like 17 out of the last 19 elections around the world in established democracies, incumbents on the left and the right have lost. Including in the U.S. Trump came in once, was voted out. Democrats came in, voted out, and so people are generally dissatisfied.
I love your question, Professor Fong. I admire you in 2005. I still very agile, and once we know what the